Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hi everybody, I'm Glen Richards and I'm an alcoholic. Now I feel a little disoriented tonight. I have had a lot of stuff going on this week and for the last couple of months, and you know, it's funny. I had a bunch of dreams the last couple of actually for about a week, and it just was all about you know, some of the hideous things that I did, and I you know, it was I don't know where it came from, but it was very painful, and you know, sometimes I don't like to really look back on that, and you know, but you know, I have to if I'm going to you know, stay sober. You know, it's been said that you know, three things that an alcoholic should do is have a sobriety date, have a home group, and have a sponsor. And I have a sobriety date that's July 31st, 1978. I have a home group, and that's the Pacific Group. And I have a sponsor, and that's Joe S. And I've had him for 22 years. First, I got to thank Sandy for asking me to share. You know, it's a real privilege to, you know, to participate in Alcoholics Anonymous, and certainly my sobriety. You know, I can't say that I love to do this, but I'm honored to do it. I can think of, I didn't get up this morning and think, geez, I'm sure glad I got to speak tonight. In fact, I got up this morning and I thought I was going to have to go to jury duty, and because I was on the call-in system that they got now, and you know, I've called in every day this week, and they keep saying, you know, call back the next night, and then last night they said, call back this morning at 11:30, and I go, oh man, I have to go in there, and I don't want to do that. And you know, I thought, well, I'll get stuck on some case, and I'm going to want to leave for vacation next week, and you know, I don't want to lie, and so you know, this is not going to be good. And then I called at 11:30, and they said, groups 10, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 20, you're done. And I go, oh, thank you. So anyway, I guess I should you know, start at the beginning. You know, I was born in a little town in Montana, and you know, the first emotion that I can ever remember, and I don't even know how old I was, but but my mother had left me with some people for a while because my grandmother was dying of cancer, and you know, she went back to Rochester, New York, or Rochester, wherever the Mayo Clinic is, and was there for, you know, quite a few months, and I was with these people, and I was absolutely devastated, and I was so lonely and just frightened to death, and you know, I couldn't wait till she got back, and you know, my dad was a trucker, and he would, you know, come by and see me, you know, for a few minutes. I don't even know how often, but you know, I remember I would be really devastated when he'd have to leave, you know, and then the next emotion that I can remember was getting a little brother, which, you know, I didn't understand. You know, I became very, very violent toward him. And, you know, I don't know when it happened, but I remember one day we were playing and I purposely, you know, fell on him and ruptured him. You know, and then, you know, I never told anybody how he got hurt, and he was too young to say anything. And so, you know, to this day, I never ever told my mother, because she died before I got sober, and my father died before I got sober. So, you know, I don't even know that I've ever told my brother, you know. But anyway, you know, somehow I grew up to be, you know, I had a lot of anger, and I don't know where that came from, because my parents were not alcoholics. They could probably make a bottle of alcohol last for a couple of years. It would just stay in the cupboard, and, you know, it was never touched. So they were not angry people. My dad and mom, I don't ever remember them saying a cross word to each other. And so I don't know where my anger came. My brother is like them. He's very, very mild-mannered, just a nice guy. And I just became this absolute raging maniac. And you know, I treated everybody in my family horribly. And, you know, and I grew up, like Denise said, I grew up with a lot of fear and a lot of loneliness. And it just drove me crazy the whole time until I finally got sober. And I, you know, once I got alcohol, you know, it helped, and I just, you know, I drank as much as I could, you know, to try to eliminate a couple of those feelings, and they did somewhat, but it didn't totally erase it. It didn't set me free, I'll tell you that much. Anyway, I, you know, when I started to school, I was a very backward child, and I didn't do well in school, and you know, one of the things that happened to me when I think I was in the first grade, in the wintertime in Montana, it gets very cold, and somebody, you know, said, "I bet you can't stick your tongue on this railing," and I said, "Oh yes, I can." I did, and I had, you know, tore all the taste buds off my tongue, and I about bled to death, and not quite, but I mean, I was a mess, and you know, you know, the little things like that used to happen a lot, and I, you know, I got in a lot of fights, and you know, anyway, when I was about in the the start of the third grade, you know, I moved to a larger city, Billings, Montana, and you know, it was about, you know, 10 times bigger than this little town that we lived in, and you know, all of a sudden I was put in with a bunch of kids that were, you know, seemed hip, slick, and cool, and you know, I was just this little backward country kid, and you know, knew from nothing, and you know, I hated recess because you have to, you know, I had to go out and play, you know, try to play softball and football and all those things. I had no idea what to do, and I was just embarrassed, and you know, I could not wait for recess to get over so I could, you know, end the embarrassment and the ridicule that I used to get from these other kids. And the only thing that I used to like to do is once in a while they'd have relay races, and I could run really fast, so that was okay. But the rest of it, no, I didn't like it. And you know, by the time I got to high school, you know, I started noticing that there was sort of this group of kids that seemed to be really having a lot of fun, and they, you know, would go out and do a little drinking, and it seemed like they had like excitement in their life, and I really wanted that, and I wanted to be somebody, and I wasn't, and so I wanted to live the way they were living, and so I remember I went out this one evening, and we had a few drinks, and I knew that I was going to do this again real quick, and so the big problem was it was hard to get alcohol, and so I started badgering my mother to buy, and so I continued to like push her, and she would buy alcohol for us. So the first night that she bought some, we had this little party at my house, and we had a couple of quarts of vodka, and I drank a whole bunch, and God, I just felt incredibly good, and I remember we went out driving around in the car, and yelling and screaming at the girls and all this kind of stuff, and we came back and to get some more drinks, and the police came by and arrested all of us, and we had to go down, and we were booked, and luckily was sent home, and I remember I went home, and I was still drunk, and I passed out, and then I got sick, and my mother tried to help me, and I puked all over the front of her and took all the color out of her nightgown. And I fell on the floor, and I spent the night on the floor because she couldn't get me back in bed, and I woke up the next morning, and I thought, God, that was great, and I will do this again, and so it became my job, to stay in with the in people. It was my job to get the alcohol for everybody, and I would, every Friday night I have to badger my mother to do it, and she hated doing that because, she was taking a big chance, because the sheriff's department and the police department in Billings, Montana does not like aiding to the delinquency of minors, and they throw you in jail for a long time for doing that. But I didn't really care whether she was going to get thrown in jail or not. If I got the alcohol so that I could be part of that group, that's all that I cared about. And I became very, very selfish, and when she wouldn't do it, then I would become so nasty and so bad that it was better for her to just go ahead and do it, because to live with me was not going to be pretty. And so I continued. That happened over and over and over again all through my high school years, and I don't know how I graduated. I barely. And part of the time, I remember we. One of the fun things was to do was get somewhat drunk, and then try to get. There was some country western bars out on the outskirts of town, and it was a real game to see if you could get through the doors, through the bouncer, and really get served. And if they caught you, they threw you out, and they usually didn't open the door. They just threw you out through the swinging doors and threw you out in the street, and that wasn't fun. But it still was there was just some kind of excitement about trying that, and I tried lots and lots of times, and sometimes I made it and sometimes I didn't, and this was during the Korean War, and I was I joined the Marine Corps Reserves, and we used to go to meetings, and after meetings, we'd be in our uniforms, and we'd just go down, and most of the time we'd get in, and anyway, I got out of that, and went active in the Marine Corps, and spent a lot. I spent some time in San Diego and Camp Pendleton, and then overseas, and did a lot of drinking. One of the things that I did that, and I don't know where this came from either, but I decided that I wanted an M1 rifle, which was the rifle that the Marine Corps used at that time. And so I set about stealing a rifle and then stealing all the repair parts to keep it going for probably the next 200 years. And then I conned somebody into letting me go down to the ammunition dump, and I got a case of ammunition, which was 2,000 rounds of ammunition, and then I had it stashed out, and then took a friend of mine's car, and put all that stuff in the back of the car and drove through the gate, and took it and sent it home, and that was punishable by a lot of years in Leavenworth. You got caught, and I don't know why that I did it, because I never once I got out of the Marine Corps, I never touched that rifle again. It was just and I have no idea where it went. I don't know where all the ammunition went. It just left, and so I took a big chance for nothing, and I did a lot of drinking in the Marine Corps, and I remember I spent some time in the Aleutian Islands, and one of the things that I did, they had a big hobby shop, and I was pretty good working on a lathe, a wood lathe. So I made this huge beer mug that would hold 12 cans of beer, and it was all out of oak, and we would take this beer mug up to the Marine Club, and then we would everybody would pitch in as much money as they could, and we'd buy as many cases of beer as we could afford, and then we would set the beer on the middle of the table, and then we'd just start filling this big mug up, and then we'd pass it around the table, and you drank as much as you could, and you passed it to the next guy, and the guy on the end, usually you set somebody on the end that never drank before, because it's usually there was a lot left, and the guy on the end would just get absolutely hammered, but we all got hammered anyway, and I remember crawling around that Marine Club many nights, on my hands and knees, and people, chasing me, and we just acted like idiots. Anyway, I got out of the Marine Corps, and went to college, and all my life I had witnessed my parents. Like I said, they had a really good marriage, and they really loved each other, and I thought I wanted what they had. I wanted somebody in my life, and I was really young when I first started thinking about this, and I just couldn't wait, and and I met this girl. Actually, I met her before I left for the Marine Corps, but she was a little bit young, and when I got out of the Marine Corps, I started dating her, and after a few years, we decided to get married, but we, before we could get married, we started to have a child. So, we got married on a Sunday, and we left Montana on a Monday, and we came to California, and we never have been. Well, we went back to Montana, but we never returned there for any other, for any length of time, and we really started a dance of death here, because I was still very, very hostile, and again, I don't know where this came from, but I thought that I should be the absolute master of that house, and she thought that was not going to happen, and so it became a battle of wills, and I can remember the first time that she really tested what I said, and we got into a little scuffle, and we got into a physical fist fight, and it left me sick to my stomach that had done that, because I had never seen that in my house, violence, and I didn't like that. But every time that she would, push my buttons, and I was drunk, we would just, have these battles, and she usually wound up looking pretty bad, and a few times I looked pretty bad, and I mistreated those kids, and made them. I forced them to play sports that they didn't really want to play, and I just, I thought I was still a Marine Corps drill sergeant, and I, treated them like that, and they finally just, my middle son, I threw him out of the house when he was about 16 and told him never to come back, and I had really mistreated my oldest son, and the only one that really escaped my wrath very much was my daughter, and I don't know how she escaped, but she didn't seem to anger me as much as the other two, anyway, it just, we started doing this party scene thing. We belonged to Westchester Little League and Westchester Pop Warner football and all this kind of stuff, and all of a sudden, we're going to parties at friend's house, and there starts being these almost like wife swapping, parties, and things got a little tiny bit, too far, and that caused a lot of bad feelings among a lot of people, and especially in my house, and all the time that all those things were happening, my wife really never said you drink too much. She thought I was crazy. She really wanted me to go to a psychiatrist or somebody to check me out for being mentally, because she couldn't believe that anybody could act the way I did and not have a really huge mental problem. And I probably did have a really huge mental problem, but I drank and I drank and I drank and I drank, and I was employed by an aerospace company, and I was a supervisor at night, and I used to I never drank during work hours because I worked graveyard shift, and so I'd go to work at 12 o'clock at night and then work till 7 in the morning. But I would, the minute that I got home, I had this ritual. I would come home and I would take this big glass, and I would take a half a quart of rum, and I would put it in the glass, and I would take 1 can of Coke and I'd put it in the glass, and I would drink it in about a minute, and then I would come in, and I had about 3 or 4 minutes to make it to bed, and if I got delayed along the way, I just fell over because I would pass out right there, and most of the mornings I made it to bed, and then I would sleep until till early in the afternoon, and then I would get up, and then I would drink a little while. I mean, I have a few beers and some wine or whatever was around, and then about 8 o'clock at night I would drink the other half a quart of rum, and go to sleep for a few hours and wake up and go to work, and I did that for 10 years, and it seemed like every day I would get up in the morning, I'd be coming home from work, and I would think, when that quart's done, I'm not going to buy another one. And then that night, I knew that I had to have another quart of rum, so I would go do it, and I just kept going, and I just couldn't stop drinking. Finally one night, the parties had stopped, and we were just, things got really bleak. People, talk about, things being hopeless, and my life just kept, after all the parties sort of stopped and everything, life just really looked hopeless. And I really wanted to die, but I was too cowardly, to really kill myself that way. So I just, I would, every morning when I would drink that rum, I would just sort of hope that, maybe I'm not going to wake up. There would just be oblivion. And, that's the only way that I could stop the pain and the feelings of all these things that I had done, was just be in total oblivion, because just drinking a little bit didn't help. This one night I had a really violent argument with my wife, and I decided I was going to kill her. And I had tried to kill her, a number of times, but not quite as, I hadn't really thought about it as much. So this night I had this couple of gallons of sulfuric acid in the garage, and I was going to dump that all over and make sure that if she didn't die, she was going to be so maimed that she would just not be anything. And then I was going to drink a little myself, and just that was going to be it. And but to do this, I would have to have a little bit of rum. So I would go out to the garage where I stashed all this rum, and I would drink enough that I would have to lay down and sleep for a few minutes, and then I would wake up and I'd say, well, I got to get this done. And I did that about 3 times during the night, and finally, I woke up probably about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I just had this thing that said, you have to stop drinking, you have to do something about it, and if you don't, your life's going to be ended. And I waited a little while longer, and I went in and I woke my wife up, and told her that I thought that I had a problem with drinking, and that I had to stop drinking. And she said, well, when did you finally come to this conclusion? Like, you should have come to this conclusion a long time ago. So she said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I guess I have to call Alcoholics Anonymous. And this was a Sunday morning, and I thought Alcoholics Anonymous was closed on Sunday, so I didn't. So I didn't call. But bright and shiny on Monday morning, she said, are you going to call Alcoholics Anonymous? And I said, I will, and I did. And I called, and I called central office, and a girl answered and wanted to know if I had a problem with alcohol, and I said I did. And she said, would you like to have somebody call you about taking you to a meeting? And I said, yeah, and I would really like to have a meeting in Westchester, because I'd like to go in Westchester. And she said, sure, we'll do that for you. So this guy called me, and he said, would you like to go to a meeting? And I said, yeah, I'd like to go to a meeting in Westchester. He said, sure, I'll take you to one. And so he comes and gets to me, and he takes me to Ohio Street to a PG meeting. And so that was Monday Night, Ohio, and on July 31st, 1978. And I walked into that meeting, and I had a different experience than Nadisna had. When I got there, it just seemed like a safe place, just like this feels like a safe place to me. And there was a lot of joy, and there was a lot of people that were happy, and there was a lot of people, sticking their hand out and saying hello, and I hadn't had that for a long, long time. I had had a lot of people at work wanted to get rid of me, and my wife wanted to get rid of me, and my kids were through with me, and there wasn't very many people wanted to even let me in the door, so I felt home and I felt safe. And, I started a journey, and this guy that came and got me, his name was Jim, and he became my first sponsor. And naturally, he took me to all PG meetings. And so, by the end of a week, I was in the PG, and I have been there ever since. And, I got him for a sponsor, and I started getting, commitments to do, what I was supposed to do, and I started on the journey, and, by the time I was, right after I first got sober, it seemed like, everything was great, and it seemed like life was going to be, happy at home again, or something like that, but, it wasn't very long before, I started to wake up, and the girl that I had married, I didn't even really know. I mean, because for 20 years I had been absolutely, stoned, and I had no idea what she was about, and she didn't have any idea what I was about either, and so by the end of a year we were like ready to kill each other in sobriety, and so my sponsor, the sponsor I have now, told me, I think maybe you better move out, and so, before she gets a gun and really ends you. And so I moved in with another guy that he sponsored, and I stayed there for a couple of years. And I tried to, I got a separation, and then I, applied for a divorce, and somehow the divorce papers were lost, and I went over to her house one day to do something, and she asked me, "What's happening with the divorce?" And I said, "I don't know. They lost the papers, and I guess they got to refile." And she said, "Well, I'm going to get a lawyer on Monday, and we'll get this ended." And somehow that day we talked and decided that we maybe should try it again, and so we did, and boy, it took some. After I was there a week, I thought, man, I know why I left. And but my sponsor told me, if you go back, you're not going to go back there and just stay for a couple of weeks and say, I can't make it work, and that's it. You're going to go back there and you're going to make it work. So I went back there and I made it work, and I tried everything that I was told to do. And I started coming home and asking her, how her day was, and it used to be that when she came home from work, she didn't talk to me for about an hour, and so that used to anger me to death. And but anyway, I started doing this thing of asking her how her day was, and just trying to be kind, and be interested in what she was doing, and things started to turn around, and life got better, and I just kept getting more comfortable, and I've been back there for a long time now, and in a couple of months we will celebrate 43 years, minus 2 together, but from the day we got married, 43 years have passed, and life is really good for us. I just retired a few months ago, and I was a little scared about that, but with the program of Alcoholics Anonymous to help me out, I got through that, and I love it now, and I have a couple of little granddaughters that come over to see me on a regular basis, and they're very much into soccer, so I go play soccer with them, and take them places, and they like to go to church, and I take them to that church, and we've I don't know how you could get from wanting to kill somebody to wanting to be with two little children that think you're okay. And Yes, it was funny. We just went to this funeral for my father-in-law a couple of weeks ago, and we were at the graveside. Everybody was asked to say a few words, and you know, I said that that my father-in-law had taken care of my kids better than I did, and it was true, but my oldest son came up to me later and said, don't say that anymore because that's not true. So, you know, you know, he said, you did the best you could. And it's still hard to, you know, to think about that, but we have a really good relationship, and you know, I love him a lot, and I love my other kids a lot, and I have 4 other grandchildren, and they're in Tucson, but you know, I see them fairly regularly, and life is good, and you know, it couldn't have happened unless of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm truly grateful to, you know, to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm glad I'm here, and thank you very much for letting me share.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up, but the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.